Good day, class. So, for today's lesson, we will continue to discuss the fundamentals of art, contemporary art forms based on elements and principles. So, we have the color. Color refers to visual perception that allows a person to differentiate objects due to the way various wavelengths of light are reflected. Color is a very important element because it can communicate informations and emotions to the viewer. It simply means that every color corresponds to a particular meaning and emotion. Color has three properties, which are as follows. So we have the hue, the value, and the saturation. Okay, so the first one we have the hue. So when we say hue, it refers to the basic or pure color and is represented in the color wheel. So it simply means that hue is what most people think of when using the term color. It corresponds to its position in the spectrum that is found in our color wheel. For example, the color of hues are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. So in scientific terms, hue is the spectral wavelength composition of a color that produces the perception of being red, yellow, blue, and so on. Therefore, we can say that hue represents the true color or a pure color that we see in our color wheel. Next, we have the value. So when we say value, it refers to the lightness and darkness of color. A light color or tint is the result of adding white to a hue, while a dark color or a shade results from adding black to a hue. So in other words, value defines how light or dark a given color or hue can be. Values are best understood when visualized as a scale or gradient from dark to light. High contrast images have hue tonal values in between stronger hues like black and white, as you can see in our images. Therefore, value is responsible also for the appearance of texture and light in a contemporary arts. Next, we have the saturations. So when we say saturations, it refers to the brightness and dullness of color. It is also referred to as purity of the color. A bright color can be produced by adding more pigment to the same hue, while a dull color can be produced by adding gray or the color's complement to the pigment. So, in other words, saturation refers to the intensity of a color by means of differentiating the brightness and dullness of color in a particular art or in a particular object. It also refers to the dominance of hue in a color. So in color theory, saturation defines a range from pure color, which means 100%, to gray, which is 0%. Saturation is sometimes referred to as color intensity. A fully saturated color is one of pure color, while a fully desaturated color appears as gray. Next, we have color schemes. So in color schemes, we have the monochromatic. So these refer to a color scheme that involves using the same hue but with different gradients of value. So as you can see in our image, we have a monochromatic representation of art. We can easily visualize that it uses one color only with different gradients. So a monochromatic color scheme is a one color scheme that is created using different tones of that one color. So mono means one. So once you have chosen your base color, you can use a color wheel to help you choose different hues of the same color, varying the saturation and tone of base color to pick out lighter and darker hues, which may represent in our images. Next, we have Analogous. So Analogous entails the use of 3 or 4 adjacent colors in the color wheel. So as you can see here in our images, we have different artworks like painting, wherein we have a representation also of minimalism artwork of paint. But as you can see here, it uses 3 or 4 adjacent colors at the same time in this kind of artwork that can be found in our color wheel. Next, we have Complementary. So it involves the use of a color and its complement, meaning the color located opposite of the least color that we can find in our color wheel. So how do we make complementary colors? So the complement of any primary color can be made by combining the two other primary colors. So for example, to achieve the complement of yellow as a primary color, one could combine red and blue. The result would be a purple, which appears directly across from yellow on the color wheel. Next, we have split complementary. So when we say split complementary, it is a close relative to complementary color scheme. But instead of using the colors complement, this scheme uses the two colors adjacent to the complement. So a split complementary scheme involves the use of 3 colors. Start with one color and find its complement and then use the 2 colors on the other side of it. So for example, the complement of blue-green is red-orange, and the split complement of blue-green would be red-orange. So as you can see in our examples, they use split complementary colors in representation to their artwork. Next, we have Triadic. So when we say Triadic, this color schemes uses 3 colors. Tria means 3 that are of equal distance with each other. So as you can see here in our images, a triadic color scheme is being applied and comprised of 3 colors. Next, we have tetradic color schemes. It is also known as double complementary scheme, and this uses 2 pairs of complementary colors. So when we say 2 pairs, it is composed of 4 different colors that is complementary in the color wheel. As you can see in our examples, they use 4 complementary colors or 2 pairs of colors. Next, we have value. This element refers to the lightness or darkness of an area. This element is also evident in creating shadows for a 2-dimensional object to give an illusion of depth. So value defines how light or dark a given color or hue can be. So as you can see in our representations, in our images, you can visualize the darkness and the lightness of color by means of differentiating values. So values are best understood when visualized as a scale or gradient from dark to light. Next, we have the texture. So this element refers to the feel of appearance of a surface. A person may describe texture if the surface is either smooth or rough. Texture may also be described as actual or implied. So when we say texture in a general sense, the word texture refers to the surface characteristic and appearance of an object given by the size, the shape, the density, the arrangement, the proportion of its elementary parts. It is usually described as smooth or rough, hard, coarse or fine, glossy, and etc. So you can recognize an object by touching it. You can recognize its texture. And by looking at it, we can easily visualize the texture of an object or an art. Next, we have the space. So space refers to the area that is occupied by an object or a subject, as well as the area surrounding that object or subject. It is also an illusion of space that can still be created in a two-dimensional surface using perspective. So there are two types of perspective: atmospheric perspective, which utilize properties of light and air in depicting the illusion of distances; a linear perspective, which involves the use of vanishing points and receding hidden lines. So in terms of art, space is the area around, above, and within an object. With consideration to drawings and paintings, our goal is to create the illusion of space. So many artists overlook the importance of creating space in a drawing or painting. The result usually looks flat. Flat or objects can appear to be floating. Luckily, however, creating space in an art is very simple to accomplish, and there are a few numbers of ways to do it. So we have 6 ways to create the illusion in a particular space on a two-dimensional surface. So we have the first one, the linear perspective. So in linear perspective, using either one-point perspective, as you can see in our first image and second image, and two-point perspective, as you can see here in our third image, or even a three-point perspective, an artist can create the illusion of space. Linear perspective is a drawing method that uses lines to draw objects in space. Next, we have overlapping. When one object is positioned in front of another object, part of the object behind it may be blocked from a view. So this is called overlapping. Next, we have the size. So when we say size, objects that are closer to a viewer appear larger than objects that are farther off in the distance. So we can say that size, when you look at an art that follows the size, it seems that the larger object is nearest from your point of view than the object behind it. Next, we have placement on the surface. Generally, objects that are positioned lower on the picture plane, as you can see in our image, will appear closer than objects that are positioned higher on the picture plane. Next, we have color and value. Objects that are closer to a viewer appears darker in value and warmer in color. On the other hand, objects that are farther away appear lighter in value and cooler in color. Next, we have detail. Objects that are closer appear more detailed than objects that are farther away. Means to say that the specifications or information are really or clearly understood when we look at objects that are closer to us. or closer to our view of sight. Next, we have time and motion. Movement in the visual arts can either be an illusion or an actual motion. An illusion of movement is more common to two-dimensional artworks. On the other hand, actual motion is easily seen in kinetic sculpture, a type of sculpture that moves with the wind or are vibrating with the surrounding air. Let us now proceed to drawing. So when we say drawing, it is a creation of an image. So when we say creation of an image, it is also a creation of graphical representation of an object. So a diagram or a form using drawing tools such as pen, ink, brush, pencil, markers, charcoals, crayons, and etc. So those materials and drawing tools are used in an artwork, wherein it follows the principles in freehand drawing, meaning that we are applying our skills in sketching or shading. So in drawing, it uses hatching, scumbling, stippling, and blending. So those hatching, scumbling, stippling, and blending are called the pencil drawing techniques. So it represents a creative idea through a sketch on a paper or a surface. So this allows you to be able to represent your skills in shading or in sketching when we apply this pencil drawing techniques like hatching, scumbling, stippling, and blending. So we have the first one, we have the hatching. So when you say hatching, the lines are drawn in the same direction as you can see in our image. So by drawing lines closer together or bunched together, darker values and light values are being created. Leaving more space between lights results in different values. So for rounded objects like this in our example, we have a spherical ball. The lines may curve slightly around the form because our object is round or in a curvature representation that follows the contours of our object as a round object. So as you can see here in our spherical ball, the reflection of light source is coming from the top left portion. So we assume here that our light source is coming from top left portion. That is why our cast shadows is in the right side below. As you can see, the darker values are found also from the right side portion of our spherical ball because in that portion, there are less or konti lang yung nare-receive niya na light source. Knowing that our light source is coming from the top left portion of our drawing. But from the left portion of our spherical ball, it receives a vast amount of light source dahil nasa harapan siya or in front siya ng light source natin. Next, we have cross-hatching. So in cross-hatching, lines are crossed over each other, as you can see in our image. So the density at which lines cross over each other determines the value that is produced. So sa cross-hatching, yung gagawin mo lang ay gagawa ka muna ng hatching lines. Then after that, you will cross another hatching lines to make it cross-hatching lines. And make sure that they are bunched together or close to one another. As you can see here, we can create dark values and lighter values as follows to our principles in shading techniques. As our assumption that our light source coming from top left corner of our drawing. Next, we have blending. So in blending, we will create smooth gradations of value that are produced either by adjusting the amount of pressure applied to the medium or by using a blending tool, such as a blending stamp, if available. So, ibig sabihin nito, we can now apply blending technique just like this. After natin mag-create ng hatching and cross-hatching sa ating spherical ball by simply smudging the area using our fingertips or by using blending tool if available. So as you can see in our image, same principles will also follow, assuming that our light source ay nasa top left portion siya. So the darker values are found from the right side portion of our spherical ball because nasa likuran na siya ng ating light source. And in that portion, konti lang yung nare-receive niya na light source, knowing that our light source is coming from top left portion of our drawing. But from the left portion of our spherical ball, it receives a vast amount of light source. So as you can see, yung light of values ay nasa left side or nasa top left portion. Kasi yan yung area na nakaka-receive ng light source natin. Next, we have the stippling pencil drawing techniques. So in stippling technique, we are applying countless small dots to build up darker values or lighter values in our spherical ball or in our drawing. The density of the dots determines the value produced. So as you can see, we have darker dots located in the bottom, also in our cast shadows, and in the right side corner of our spherical ball. And the lighter dots are all located at the top portion and at the left side portion of our spherical ball. And lastly, we have scrumbling technique. So this technique is moving the pencil or simply moving your pencil in small circular motions and keeping them all very compact or close to one another. As you can see, we create a small circular motions in our pencil, creating this kind of shading techniques, the scrumbling. So the following pencil drawing techniques are all freehand drawing that applies the application of basic instrument, just like a pencil and a piece of paper. So let us now proceed to painting. So painting is a creative expression using pigment, or when we say pigment, it pertains to color on a surface for a static value or a representation of beauty of a work of art. Tools or implements are used to apply the coating through brush, sponge, and the like. So we are using liquid instruments or liquid use instruments just like brush, because wherein we also use liquid medium just like acrylic paint, watercolors, and etc. So painting can be naturalistic, it can be photographic, representational, abstract, or using minimalist representation or geometric shapes, narrative, and also political in nature.